Thank you very much, Wes, for those kind words and your reception of them. It's over 20 years since I stood at what was the platform in this hall as President of the Trade Union Congress. And as has been indicated, I'm the first and so far the only ex-president who's ended up as a president of the TUC. The others have gone in a variety of other directions, as you'll appreciate. It's more than 50 years since I presided over what was then the NUS Council, as it was called. So you can see I'm somewhat dated by all that. In the meantime, there have been a lot of changes in all sorts of directions. In Blackpool, they no longer serve draft champagne at Yates's Lodge. In Oxford, the undergraduates have stopped lubricating their bikes with Benedictine. And as you know, they're now nationalising the banks, sort of. I notice they haven't touched HSBC. The NUS took care of them last year. More seriously, the NUS itself has changed greatly and is about to change yet further. So this is a very significant time in its life. But while the change has been described as historical, it's important to emphasize what is unchanging, namely the basic principles and purpose of the organization. When you're about to move forward, it's perhaps a good idea occasionally to look back. And so I haven't got a committee mandate because although we have trustees, we don't have a committee that gives me a mandate, so I'm free to say what I hope is appropriate. I think you may think I'm going back into the mists of history, but it's, I think, as well to recall the changes that have taken place during the lifetime of the NUS and my time as trustee. First, the very size of the organisation. We counted the members in thousands. You count them in millions. There were 300 delegates to our council in those days. You have over 1,400 at this conference. Our student unions were overwhelmingly those of a much smaller number of universities, very few other colleges or institutions. Today you have almost 600 student unions in membership over the whole range of a greatly enlarged HE and FE sector. Then our council delegates were almost overwhelmingly male and white. Today you cover the whole spectrum of gender balance and of ethnic minorities. Astonishingly, in over 50 years, there wasn't a single woman president of the NUS. In the last 16, I'm pleased to say, there have been 7 women and 9 men. In the late 40s and 50s, many of our members were from the ex-service generation. They'd had a kind of gap year. It lasted 4 or 5 years and it wasn't voluntary. So when they came back, they had a lot of time to catch up. And it's very much to their credit that that generation gave the time to rebuild and greatly enhance the NUS, to widen its scope as a union and change it quite markedly from what had gone before. Since then, the changes and developments have been greater, but the spirit and the purpose of the NUS has not changed, and I believe will not change. Inevitably, there were problems, and sadly, divisions of a kind that I hope you will avoid, whatever differences of opinion you might have. There were 2 divisions that were deep and almost life-threatening. The first arose over our international relations and over the attempt by the Communists and the Soviet Union to dominate the International Union of Students, to pervert its purpose. And the debate in the NUS raged strongly as to whether we should stay in and build bridges or come out and help to find a genuine student international. In that organization, I had encounters with people like Alexander Shelyapin, who later went on to become head of the KGB. Jacques Vergès, who is still a very left-wing lawyer in France, who, among other things, defended Klaus Barbie. There was Yuri Pelikan, who took refuge in the West eventually. There was Jože Groman, who'd been the communist president and then was purged in Czechoslovakia. Those are the kind of people one encountered. And it was astonishing that it took us quite a long time to convince some of our members that the IUS had become what was in effect the student branch of the Cominform. But eventually they accepted, and we withdrew and helped to found the International Student Conference. I must say, I think you're fortunate in having international relations and activity today of an altogether different kind. The second division was over the constitutional clause which said that we should confine our activities to those things which affected students as such. It was a prolonged debate, a serious debate, an important debate. It was about what the limit should be on the organisation, on an organisation with limited resources. In the end, the clause was changed, and since then, the NUS has ranged far and wide. But the issue still has to be faced sooner or later. What are your priorities, given that you haven't got unlimited resources, unlimited time, and the membership has divided interests and loyalties? In spite of those differences, and we had those divisions, the debates were vigorous. I still don't recall anybody ever seeking to occupy the platform at the NUS Council. We had genuine debates, and as a well-wisher, can I say that having sat through many hours of the debates of this organisation, this union, in this hall, I heartily agree with what Wes said this morning about the nature and the tone of your debates. I think it really is important, while you feel deeply on issues, that you preserve some respect for the views of others and have some regard to what the people outside the hall might think of your deliberations. The divisions and debates to which I referred to did not stop us from concentrating our main energies on those matters which mattered most to our members, especially on the issue of grants, on which the work of the NUS was quite outstanding, and about which you have rightly paid tribute to the contribution made by Stella Greenall over many years. It was outstanding in its achievements. And whenever you meet those who you do from time to time seek to argue, why should we stay in the NUS? Why shouldn't we disaffiliate? The work that we did, and you have done more extensively in recent years, is one of the incontrovertible arguments for staying in and supporting this organisation and supporting collective national effort on those kind of issues. I want to recall also briefly what we did in one respect about the rights of students, and of course you've done a great deal more since then in many directions, but at that time, one of the causes we fought was for the right of the students in the teacher training colleges to be treated in the same way and at the same level as their colleagues, counterparts in the universities, which they were not at that time. And we had a cause célèbre. There was one president of a students' union, Sheila Davis, president of the Bangor Normal College. Well, it was all too normal in terms of what went on in the training colleges at that time, because the students were treated more like school children than grown-ups. And we fought a major case and we won on her behalf. And one of the offshoots of that was that I was invited to apply for a post at the NUT, and that's why I eventually went there, because they knew of the work that we'd done and approved of it. Of course, other successors in the position of president of this union have gone into all sorts of major posts. I won't comment on what you might feel about them individually, except to say this. What they have achieved, the places they have aspired to and reached, are a measure of the quality of this organisation and of the respect that it's held in the outside world. And it's also a tremendous way of preparing for major responsibilities of that kind. Now, just as you've referred, and I've referred to our campaigning efforts and what you've done, so I want to refer briefly to the NUS as a pioneering and an innovative body. It was in those days, for example, we led the promotion of charter flights for students. We promoted farm camps. We had a drama festival. We had the national debating tournament, and I suggested that because in my experience of the Oxford Union, there was far higher standard of debate in this organisation and some of its affiliated colleges than there was in the Oxford Union. So we had the national debating tournament. I recall these kinds of achievements in order to indicate the sort of debt that we owe to those who came before in the way they built up the organisation. But I'm sure they would be the first to join with me in expressing admiration for what you've achieved in recent years and are achieving now and seeking to achieve in the future. All of it, what you're doing and have achieved, greatly exceeds what was done in those earlier decades. The report that you've produced is a testimony to all that. So is what Wes had to say this morning in his magnificent speech. They show that while other unions have tended to decline, and sadly that is the case in some other countries, the NUS has gone from strength to strength, and the changes you're about to apply will make you even stronger. I'm not in the habit of quoting with approval the speeches of Tory MPs, but there's one of whom I would quote with some approval, and that's David Willits, when he said not so long ago, "I believe I've become a great fan of student unions. They are where you get real, vibrant democracy, and there's real, practical support for students and everything from finance to sexual health. I have changed my view on student unions, and we have to recognise the great work they do." Now, that coming from somebody connected with a party that not so long ago sought to undermine, if not destroy, the NUS, is a tribute to the achievements of the NUS today. I only hope that Mr. Willits remembers what he said if he gets translated into some position in the coming future, indeed whether he will get translated to a position, given that he's already lost one job because he was rather too honest about the merits or demerits of the grammar school. But anyway, it was a recognition of achievement. Now you've had the courage and the foresight to recognise that there must be changes to confront the very serious challenges that face students today and the even greater challenges in the years to come. And your document, A Wave of Change, is, in my view, a first-class analysis of what those challenges will be, and you are right to make the changes you're about to implement. Now, one of those changes is the appointment for lay trustees and the considerable enhancement in the role of the trustees. May I say that, again, it is greatly to your credit that you have attracted such a fine field of applicants for what is, after all, an unpaid post, and that they all expressed their admiration for and eagerness to help the NUS. I hope you'll approve their appointment and listen seriously to the advice they will seek to give, and that the new board, together with the new Executive Council, will make NUS, as you seek, more accessible, more accountable, and more effective. For myself, I retire as a trustee, tremendously grateful for having been given the opportunity to serve this fine organisation and to have made so many friendships over the years. I'm confident you'll remain true to the union's basic principles and mission and equal to the challenges you will face and of which Wes spoke so eloquently today. While the times may and will be hard, while the problems will be profound, there are few greater purposes than to fight the barriers that limit opportunity in education, to empower students to shape the quality of their learning experience and the world around them. I wish you every success in those endeavours, and I want to thank you for your kindness in allowing me to address you. Thank you.